Chat's 20. Oh no, I was going to talk 2020 New Year's sort of predictions, but instead we'll call it New Year's resolutions, as we'll have a chat about what resolutions various teams and players should have, as well as give you a few predictions as to what's going to happen next year. And I say we because not only is it myself, hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, but also joining me is Mr. Stephen Harris. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, good evening. Good evening, Paul. Once again, a privilege and a pleasure to be on the TDM, but on the very, very last day of 2019. So I just want to wish everybody out there a very, very happy and prosperous new year. And also, I hope that all the sides that you support next year were way better than what they were in 2019.
Except for Saracens, obviously, who will have less money to spend on their team.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I do have my Exeter Chiefs jersey on this evening. Cheers, sir. I've got the bubbles for my third glass tonight. So hey, we're doing well. And Stephen's on his Coke, different types of bubbles, but hey, he sells that stuff. So blame all your kids for his rotten teeth, for their rotten teeth. Sorry, not his rotten teeth. You know what I
mean. That was no sugar, by the way.
No sugar. Oh, good boy. Good boy. Talking of the Premiership, have you seen the Premiership table recently?
Yes, I have. I've got it right here in front of me, all printed off. And
printed off? Course, how old school is that?
Got it printed off as well. I know, unbelievable. Exeter Chiefs, after 7 rounds, lead who are on 24 points from Northampton Saints. Only a point between these two teams at the moment. Interestingly enough, they are the two best attacking teams in the competition, but not necessarily the best defensive team. Best defensive team in the competition, ironically, is Saracens, Paul, with 101 points. And we see Gloucester in third place.
Well, actually, there's a few sides that have scored more points than Exeter. They've got the best points difference, but actually...
Oh, yes, you are right. They are up there, but they're probably, in terms of, I suppose if you want consistency, they're obviously scoring some points, and they're obviously defending reasonably well. What's that work out to after about 7 rounds? Looks like they're only conceding about sort of 15 points a game. So that's not a bad effort from Exeter Chiefs. Of course, you got Northampton Saints, who started the season pretty well under Chris Boyd on 23 points. And you got two teams together on 18 points, Gloucester and Bristol, both on 18 points. Although Bristol will probably be asking themselves how they gave up that game against Wasps on the weekend. And then we see Bath and Worcester Warriors on 17, along with Sale, all on 17. In fact, we got 4 teams on 17 points. Bath, Worcester, Sales, and Harlequin, all on 17 points. And then back to London Irish, Wasps, Leicester Tigers, and Saracens back on minus 12. So I think even the likes of Leicester Tigers will be slightly looking over their shoulder, Paul.
Slightly. Oh, I think Irish... Irish. I've got a screen over there. Irish Wasps and Tigers will all be looking over their shoulders at Saracens, most definitely, because they are closing extremely fast. The rest of them, though, I mean, third down to 8th, just 1 point separates them. So there's still a lot of room there for those teams to move up and down. But there is a bit of a gap then from 8th to 9th, 5 points down to London Irish. So you think that relegation side's probably going to come out of Irish Wasps and Tigers. Obviously, Tigers with just the 1 win so far and the draw are the side that's looking at the most vulnerable. But they are starting to pick up. I mean, they had a good half against Exeter Chiefs last weekend, and then they got the draw at the weekend against Harlequins. So Tigers showing some kind of form. But it's those 3 teams that Saracens hunting down, and I think they're going to catch them quite comfortably, to be honest with you. There's no real worry there. It really is Exeter and Saracens, and then the rest. In all honesty, God.
Yeah, very much so, Paul. But we are seeing some really, really good open footy, and we're seeing the emergence of a few young guys, and I'll touch upon a player very shortly who picked up a hat trick of tries in his game, young Welsh winger. But our first game started at Ashton Gardens on Saturday morning or Friday evening English time, and of course Wasps coming away with the win by 26 points to 21. Crazy old game this, I think both sides probably did their best to maybe win and lose this game, but I must admit, I think I might have sent you a message, Paul, leading up until halftime. It was a pretty dour sort of a affair leading up to halftime.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Ben Darwin has put out a tweet saying that he says it's interesting how a whole bunch of sides have started really well, and the two that spring to mind are Saints and Bristol, who weren't that disrupted by the Rugby World Cup absentees, and now struggling. But if you think about Exeter Chiefs, until the last couple of years, they've actually had this patch over the festive period where they've lost 4 or 5 games on the trot. So this is the cold, wet, really part of the year. So Saints and Bristol both, I mean, two of the most attacking sides in the league. Unsurprisingly, that as soon as it gets wet, the ground gets a bit heavier. They're finding things a little bit tougher going. So unsurprised. So yeah, but not surprised that those two sides will sort of slow down a bit now over the next few weeks.
Yeah, this game pretty much came alive in the second half. We actually saw some really, really good tries. We saw a couple of former All Blacks who went in for tries, Piato and also Fekitoa. But to me, the player of the match was the boy Robson for the halfback. Robson for Wasps. I thought he was superb. I know Pat Lamb changed his halfback with about 20 odd minutes to go. Seemed to make a little bit of a difference for Bristol when the replacement halfback came on, but Robson was pretty good throughout the game, and he pretty much had Wasps playing in the right areas.
Yeah, Wasps have got a lot of good players. The problem has been getting them together as a team. So, right, it's hard to say that, look, the team's too talented to go down, because it does happen. So they are going to need to turn things around. But yeah, they're perhaps out of those three, the one that I'm least worried about. Irish and Tigers are ones I am definitely worried about. But yeah, there were a couple of games that were over the weekend. I mean, there's one game I can't remember now was 3-0 at half time. It ended up being quite a high scoring one as well. So yeah, a lot of second halves have been jumping into life recently. Maybe that's just as teams wear each other down or sound each other out, or maybe it's just that there's not enough, or the teams are overcoached and they need the coaches at half time to alter things. I don't know, but those are two things that we'll see. Just quickly in the live chats, yeah, Happy New Year to Simon and also to God Guku. Great to great way to see you there. God Guku's New Year's wish is for Wales to beat New Zealand. Well, we will we'll see about that as the year goes, as the season goes on. We'll give you some predictions later.
Paul, yep. Just want to touch on the next game. I went pretty much through the highlights as well. Of course, Northampton beating Gloucester 33-26, but not a bad effort from Gloucester. Although Northampton were coming off a couple of losses. I think they lost previously to Sale and also Leinster in European Cup rugby. So it was important that they actually bounced back, and they pretty much did that. A couple of standouts. Former South African halfback Kabus Runnick scoring a couple of tries. Probably the best player on the field. But I just also want to, like I say, highlight. It's also good to see some really good youngsters coming through. And there's a winger by the name of Reece Zammit who scored 3 tries. And this kid's only 18 years old, and he scored 3 tries in this game. A couple of them were quite easy walk-in finishes, but the reality is to see a youngster, and I know people who support the Welsh Dragons will be very happy because he is Welsh, not English, unfortunately, Paul. And he did score previous. Yeah. He did score on debut as well.
We have this absolute idiot called Andy Good. So yes, there you go. I'm not a fan of him at all. But he tweeted, "Oh, quick! Is he English or Welsh?" And he and thankfully the player replied very quickly with a Welsh flag. And let's hope he sticks with that. To be honest with you, if that's where he feels he's from. We've had players like Ben Morgan and Underhill who have both played in Wales and have come back to England to play for England. So yeah, I'm absolutely happy for Reece to go and play to be Welsh and Welsh as well.
One player, he was getting compared a little bit to Sonny Bill Williams, is the boy Mark Atkinson, who plays second five for Gloucester. There were a lot of breaks through the midfield. You just wonder if Northampton were missing the likes of the former Hurricanes man who's injured at the moment. Just escapes me, Matt Proctor, who's out injured at the moment. So there were a lot of breaks through the middle, but Atkinson, very impressive. Looks a really big midfielder. Looks like he's around that 6'2", 6'4" size, and he was being compared to Sonny Bill, a poor man's version of Sonny Bill. I think former England prop David Flatman described him as.
Well, yes. Sonny Bill has got a unique set of skills. Let's be blunt here. But I was listening to the Attacking Scrum podcast, which is a Welsh focused podcast. They talk about Reece and they're saying, look, that perhaps get him capped just to lock him into Wales. But look, let's just hold you. Actually, maybe it was Blood and Mud. Sorry, it was saying. But let's just calm the horses down. He's played a couple of good games. Yes, he's quick, but there's more to being a winger than just being quick, folks. He can finish, but can he defend? Can he do all the other things? Let's just give this kid a few more games before we make him the next best thing since ever.
Yeah, Paul, in between the middle, probably a couple of games between. I think you could probably call Bath and Sale. Bath getting across the line in a close game by 16 points to 14 at the recreation ground. So I think the home team will be happy about that. But people viewing the game would have probably thought, what a yawn. Then we sort of moved to Worcester, who played at Sixway Stadium in Worcester, and once again, probably another game that really never got to any sort of great heights. London Irish would be a bit disappointed with their discipline, though. A couple of their players, Delhi, the front rower, and our boy Matu, who used to play for the Hurricanes, was given his marching orders with a red card. So a 20 points to 6 victory. And then, we had 75,000 rock up to Twickenham to watch Harlequins and Leicester play, Paul. Good crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. A good crowd there. I thought you were going to jump onto the Exeter Saracens one where we had another red card and Saracens involved in another mass brawl.
I was saving that for last, Paul.
You said that for last. Okay. But yeah, Saracens seem to be getting involved in these brawls a little bit too frequently at the moment. So yes. Now a player running off the bench and getting involved, yeah, not quite so cool. And yes, deserved the red card. So yes, I think people are looking at Saracens and seeing them as an easy wind-up at the moment. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that's if we see more of those. But I think, yeah, do you think some other teams are going to sort of try and goad Saracens into a bit of a fight?
Yeah, I think there'll probably be a lot of cheap shots. But the Saracens team, man, they have got a lot of class in their team. A lot of internationals. Elliot Daly on the wing, Maitland was on the wing. Oh, Barrett at second five, Owen Farrell. My God, there's some quality there. And if you sort of even look into their forward pack, a middle row of Itoji and Skelton, boy, you'd have a middle row like that every day of the week, and twice on Sunday, and an international front row of Vunipola, George and Koch, and you're chucking Billy Vunipola in the boot. That's, I know, regardless of whether it being a home game, that's still a hell of an effort from Exeter. That was a very, should I say, defence-orientated games, and it's probably seen by the 3 tries that was scored, Paul. Probably all scored from close range, but I think the key moment in this game was just before half-time where Saracens were pretty much went through their forwards. During that time, there was a Exeter player that was sent to the bin, and you'd almost back Saracens in from there to score a try, but Exeter amazingly held them out. And although, like you say, a bit of a brawl at the end, not really flash on the part of Williams, who had already been yellow carded. So I think he pretty much left Wayne Barnes, who I thought did a pretty good job as well, Paul, under the circumstances.
Well, this was a game that we knew was going to blow up at some point. Okay, Exeter, a side that have come out and probably one of, if not the most outspoken against Saracens and the salary cap breach. And then to hold out Saracens for, what was it in the end, 79 minutes. The Saracens only scored through a penalty try. They didn't actually cross the whitewash themselves, is something pretty crazy. So it's unsurprising that the best referee in the world has been put in charge of what was probably the feistiest, or had definitely the potential to be the feistiest club game of the season in the Premiership, to be honest. So yes, it doesn't surprise that they put Wayne Barnes in charge of it, and he's a class operator. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm. Just an interesting sort of footnote, just on the Premiership overall. I don't know if you've read it, but on Stuff, former England international hooker Brian Moore has basically come out with just a few things in and around the modern game, and he's pretty much come out and said former England hooker Brian Moore says rugby authorities should scrap conversions and do more to speed up the game. Moore, who played 64 tests between 87 and 95, made the call in his regular Daily Telegraph column. The 57-year-old solicitor turned TV pundit, shivers, that's impressive, said he would remove conversions and make a try 7 points. Why should thrilling back movements resulting in a try in the corner have much more difficult extra 2 points from the conversion? He reckons what was bugging him was the time that was basically taking with the conversions. But, I think it's easy fixed. I've always wondered why a referee shouldn't just carry the tee around, shouldn't carry a couple of tees, Paul, if you know what I mean. And from the time that he calls the penalty, puts it down on the mark, I reckon you've got a minute to set yourself up and shoot for goal. What do you think, Paul?
Well, that's pretty close to what it is now, isn't it? I mean, basically, it's 60 seconds from when the tee comes on. Now, that allows teams a little bit of gamesmanship in the fact that they can they can be slow about bringing the tee on. But yeah, we have seen players deliberately wait for the clock to click to a certain point before they kick it to deliberately kill a game. Now, there's a certain element of managing the clock is actually part of gamesmanship, or not gamesmanship. Sorry, it's part of the skill of the game. So I'm fine with that, to be honest with you. But it's other ones about the amount of time it takes for line-outs, the amount of time it takes for scrums, and the amount of time that scrum halves get given to box kick at the back of a ruck. Those three are areas I would like tidied up. The use it law should be much quicker. I mean, it doesn't have to be at the back foot of a caterpillar for it to be available. Let's be honest. So as soon as the caterpillar starts forming, use it, and you've got 10 seconds or whatever it's supposed to, or 5 seconds you're supposed to use it. Don't spend the next 10 seconds rolling it back and told to use it again. Sorry, folks, but those things need to be sped up.
Exactly. I mean to say, they pretty much when they do that, when they basically do the engage and hit, it's all done on time. So I think it's only fair that they speed up some other areas.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I'd speed up areas. Maybe stricter about it. I mean, he makes a point here that there was 1 minute 45 seconds for in one situation. So yeah, I think the referees have the tools out there at the disposal, especially around those two areas. Not so much the line-outs or the scrums, or perhaps the line-outs, because you're not supposed to form up and have a chat first. You're supposed to go straight to the line-outs. So it's only really scrums where it's needed if the referees actually use the laws that they already have at their disposal, to be honest. But yeah. Another interesting one before we get on to sort of predictions and things is the how much players get paid by position across the European leagues. Have you? Obviously, I put the tweets in our show notes. I don't know if you've had a chance to read them yet, but it's interesting to see that how it's changed from last year to this year. Now, I guess something to point out here, folks, is that look, the salaries aren't publicly available, so there's an element of research / guesswork involved in all of this. But last year, the most valuable position was the number 10 jersey. That was the best paid across the board. And the worst paid were hookers in the Premiership and the Pro 14, which probably explains why so many lineouts are missed. And loose head prop for the top 14, which seems a bit of a strange one, really. But there's been quite a change this year. I mean, you'd expect Thames to be in charge. There's been a big change this year, looking at it. And now that 4 and 5, or the locks, are the best paid players in both the Premiership and the Guinness Pro 14, that's a bit of a surprise, isn't
it? It's a huge surprise. I know in the Northern Hemisphere game that obviously forward play is very, very, very valuable, and I would imagine having good locks. But I would have thought that to have those good locks winning lineout, well, you'd need good hookers. But just based on stats at the moment, Paul, who the heck would want to become a hooker? Because you're probably going to be the worst paid player of the 15, because the number 2s are pretty much anchored both in 2018 and 2019, 2020 are pretty much anchored to the bottom. So you're right, it is a little bit of a concern. I'm just sort of trying to think off the top of my head who are some of the quality locks. I know there's a few quality South African locks that have made their way up to the Northern Hemisphere after the World Cup, Paul.
Absolutely. They've mainly gone for Pro 14, in all honesty. Sorry, the top 14 to France, where they're third best paid. But yes, there has been an exodus. And if you go and check for your ears only, I did a post about looking at the exodus of Super Rugby and who was leaving. And the difference this year compared to after the last World Cup, we saw a lot of wingers leaving. This time around, there's been a lot of locks leaving Super Rugby, which is why I'm not surprised it's in the top 14 it's gone up. But I go back to an article I read when Steve Adams, the NBA player from New Zealand, was sort of broke through, and there's all this talk about, oh wow, are we going to see a slew of basketball players from New Zealand going across the NBA, or is this going to drive a whole generation of basketball players? And one of the points that they made then was that, look, no, it's not going to be, because the demographic to be a professional basketball player is something like 0.1% of the population is tall enough to do it, essentially, at the end of the day. So with only 4 million people, there's not that many people in New Zealand who are genetically big enough to be basketball players. And if you think about it across whilst rugby has become less about all shapes and sizes, there is the one position that is, I guess, the most size driven is lock, as in how tall you have to be. So whilst you've got a whole bunch of people who are 6 foot and can be kind of back row forwards or props, there's only so many people who are tall enough to be locks. And so maybe it's a genetic thing that's making locks a bit rarer, and hence they get paid more. But that would be my kind of only thought as to how that could be sort of justified, really.
Paul, I was going to say, when I see a 15 in the top 3 or top 2 in 2018, and of course in third placing in 2019, 2020, I can't help think Charles Pietro has probably got a good deal of the cash tucked away in his bank account. Would it be based on some? Would this be pushed up by the price of some individual players? Would you think, Paul?
I mean, there's going to be an element of that, obviously. You've got players like Itoje, Cruis, who are going to be obviously Launchbury, who are going to be trying to be held onto from an English point of view. You've got players like Jack Ryan, who've come through well. I mean, another Blood and Mud also talked about this one. And they mentioned one of the things about locks is it's one of the positions that you can play sort of longest in. So you're going to have a bunch of players in their early 30s, and obviously you expect those, once you get to that experience, you expect to get paid more from that. So it's, I guess, there's a number of things here. Whereas wingers, for example, I mean, we've talked about before, wingers by the age of 27 are pretty much burnt out. So you haven't, there aren't as many of them or aren't many successful ones in their 30s when they could have gained the experience to get a higher pay package. But for some reason, somehow, wingers are the best paid players in the top 14, which for a league that is renowned for its forward play and lack of expanse amazes me, to be honest.
I'm gonna say, Paul, one surprise for me is in the top 14 of French rugby is the value of loose head props. Obviously not valued very high at all, because obviously the tight head props are all rated in the top five. But
fourth place across all the leagues. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but your loose head props, yep, it's just not happening.
Yeah, amazing that. So be a tight head prop, don't be a loose head prop. Is definitely the message there. Move over if you can.
I'm texting my nephew as we speak.
But also, I mean, sevens are the second worst paid in the Premiership and the Pro 14, which is interesting when you think that you've got players. To a certain extent, maybe that's because there's a number of young sevens that have come through that still haven't. So your Underhills, your Currys, etc. So maybe a lot of teams have got young sevens at the moment, which might be driving that. And then
Paul, I was about to say, a lot of good young sevens running around in the Gallo Premiership at the moment, and most of them are English. Great to see.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, nines mid-table for the Gallagher Premiership and the Pro 14, whereas lower mid for the top 14. Had a chat about that with somebody the other day. I guess one of the points is I think the French produce quite a lot of scrum halves. I think it's possibly the position they go overseas for the least out of all their positions. So maybe that's part of why 9 isn't quite so higher, is because there aren't so many imports playing 9 in the top 14. Also, there obviously are exceptions and examples, but I think on the whole, I'm not sure there are as many as other positions. And one of the reasons perhaps why front row forwards are low in the top 14 is perhaps the number of Georgians that are there, and the fact that maybe if you're coming from Georgia, you're happier with a lower salary, because when you go home, you don't need as much cash to sort of set yourself up for life. So maybe there's an element there of the number of Georgians in the top 14.
Well, after seeing some video footage of one of the most amazing scrum performances by the Brazilian rugby team in 2019, where they basically pushed the team, I don't know, it must have been a good 30-odd metres down the field. Maybe they should be looking in the direction of South America for props.
Well, Uruguay as well. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, Uruguay, yes,
and
exactly.
Chile. So yes, so head if you want props, head to South America, but not Argentina. We've seen Argentina have given up producing props and just produce wingers now. So yes, so some interesting things there, folks. I'll put a link down below, and a link in the article on DrivingMaul.com to those tweets, so you can have a look at those that information. So, being a New Zealand-based show, obviously Super Rugby coming up. What are any predictions for Super Rugby as to how teams or players might go?
Well, I think when we last had a brief chat about the squads, I think we all identified the Chiefs as probably the strongest out of all the squads, if they can remain injury free. Hopefully they haven't got the normal Chiefs curse of basically having so many injuries throughout a season. But on paper, they still probably look the better sides them, and I still think the Crusaders will still put out a reasonably strong side, even though they've lost many of their personnel from previous years, Paul. I think those are probably the two to watch. I know I say this every year, but I'm expecting a better performance from the Blues. It's got to happen sometime. Seriously.
Yeah, some of the interesting things. Can the Jaguares back it up? I think they probably can. Yes, they've lost a few players, such as Lafanini and Landajo, Iglesias. But I think, I think they can back it up. So I think I'm looking forward to them. You've got to say, with the mass exodus from Australia, you've got to predict that the Australian teams are going to do poorly, especially as there doesn't seem to be one experienced 10 amongst the entire competition. with perhaps the exception actually with the Rebels, in the fact that they still have Matt Tamura, but is he really a 12 rather than a 10? But all the other sides basically haven't got a 10 to basically run the team around the park. For the Sunwolves, good luck guessing what the Sunwolves will do. I'm not expecting much because they've had a total clear out, and it's a brand new squad, pretty much. So we're not going to see players. I don't think players like Hayden Parker, etc., because of the clash with the top league competition over there. A lot of these players will be playing for their companies rather than for the Sunwolves. So yeah, not expecting much from them. Come to South African teams, the Bulls. Well, they've got no engine room. They've lost all their locks, so it's a rebuilding year for the Bulls. For me, the Lions actually perhaps haven't lost the level of. They've lost a few players, perhaps not lost the skill they've lost in previous years. I think the Lions might go well.
I'm going to say, Paul, I'm trying to feel sorry for those South African teams, but I keep visualising a smiling, smirking John O'Connor. So, yeah, hey, listen, come what may. Obviously going to be tough for some of those sides. We all know what these South African sides, they're a little bit like that diesel truck that you start up. It's hard to get them going, but once they start grinding and rolling, they'll probably be hard to beat at home. But with so much experience, I kind of feel for some of them on their road trips.
Well, yeah, I mean the Bulls the only one with the same head coach this year. The Lions, the Sharks, the Storms are all changing head coaches, and so you just got to say, look, how well are they going to do with that with new head coaches? As you say, that diesel engine, they're all going to take an element of getting to know the coaches and slowly speeding up. So the Lions at least had Ivan Van Rijn towards the end there, but the other three. So the other two, the Sharks and Stormers, it's a bit of guesswork. Don't expect much out of them at the beginning of the season, I think, essentially. Top try scorer, Sevu Reece. Is there anyone else that you can?
That's a good one. Yeah, you know he's always going to be sniffing around. I'm just trying to think who the Chiefs wingers are this year. Paul, who'll be running around for the wing for the Chiefs this year?
So running around for the Chiefs on the wing this year, we've got players like Solomon Alomalo, Kini Naholo. There's an interesting one for you.
Yeah.
Nana Satoro, Sean Stevenson, Sean Wainui, Alex, Balin Sullivan, kind of the players around that kind of space. So there's Solomon Alomalo and Sean Wainui, I guess, will probably be the first, or maybe Sean Stevenson will probably be the first choice players when it comes up to at the beginning of the season, and your Naholos, Sullivan, Nana Satoro are going to have to try and force their way in, I think. I can see them being switched around quite a lot there. I can't see them. There's not a definite kind of these are your first choice two wingers to me.
I wonder how far away the likes of Damien McKenzie is from returning to rugby. He's back training at the minute, I believe.
I believe he's back training, so I think he'll start the season. But yeah, so yes, Damien McKenzie's another one. If we go over to South Africa, you've got Dante for the Lions. If he's not banned, I don't know if he's actually got a drug ban or not there. But Nkosi obviously will be up there. Who's that Bulls winger that plays sevens? I was thinking of Speckman.
Oh, Sinetla?
No, Speckman. One I think of. But Snapper is also there. But yeah, Speckman is one of that will be interesting to see. So a few guys there potentially who might score a few, and obviously the Jaguares wingers as well would be a good a good shout for top try scorer.
Tell you what, Paul, we shouldn't forget that the Jaguares were a finalist in 2019, and if they can improve on it, they could be a team that could be there or thereabouts at the end.
Absolutely. So you got your players there like Moroni, Buffelli, Cancelleri, Malia. I mean, they're all There's a whole bunch of players there who could. Moyano has moved to Toulon, unfortunately. They also got Delgi and Tukelet coming out of the backfield as well. So perhaps the Jaguares are the place where the top try scorers can come from this next season. International.
Did we touch on the Australian teams?
On the what? Sorry.
Did we touch on the Australian teams?
Well, basically that they're all got brand new 10s and that they're going to struggle.
Yeah. You hope that they. I mean to say you hope that they do well. I think the Reds might do okay next year, Paul, because they were. If you remember, they were a very, very young side, and there were times during Super Rugby. I think they actually showed some promise. So maybe another year under Brad Thorne, they could be dangerous. And once again, it'll be interesting to see how the Waratahs go under. Is it Rob Penny these days?
Well, it would have been Rob Penny, except Rob Penny has gone off to has left them and gone to Penny. I think who's gone to Scotland? No, it's not Penny. It's the other guy. But yes, they've lost a player. They've lost a head coach to Scotland because they nicked Scotland's coach for to go to the Brumbies, and then they lost the player. They lost the coach in return. I'm trying to I can't remember if it was Rob Penny or not.
Well, I'll tell you what, Paul.
Sorry, Steve Tandy who they lost.
I just jumped on the Australian TAB odds to see who they had as their local favourite over there, and the Waratahs. The Brumbies are at $21, and they are look like they're about the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth favourite. My God, they've got the Crusaders at $2.75, the Chiefs at $4, the Hurricanes at $9, the Blues at $8, the Lions at $15, the Highlanders at $11, the Jaguares at $13, and then you're back to the Brumbies at $21, Waratahs at $41, Rebels at $26, Sharks, doesn't appear much of the South African sides aren't rated. The Sharks at 34, Stormers at 26, Bulls at 41, Reds at 81. Well, did I say there were a chance before?
You did. I mean,
and the Sunwolves at $151. So that's the Australian betting odds. So even the local punters don't rate their own teams. It's pretty sad.
No, you've got to say that the Jaguares should top South African group. The only one they got competition from is the Lions, so the Jaguares should be better. Those are the best odds in that whole crowd. That's the best money from my just from listening to you reading it out. You say they're finalists last year. They're likely to top South African conference. They'll get a home semi-final. They've got to be actually. There is solid competition this year. So that to me is where the smart money would go. But you've got to say, Crusaders and Chiefs looking like the two favourites, quite rightly.
And just looking at the New Zealand TAB odds, they've got the Crusaders as favourites, Chiefs second, Hurricanes third, Jaguares fourth, Blues fifth, Highlanders sixth.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yes, unsurprising that they've okay, there you go. The New Zealand TAB is better than the Australian TAB as far as knowing what they're knowing their eggs, as it were. Or eggs? I don't know why I said eggs, but anyway. International rugby. Can South Africa dominate and stay number one after winning the Rugby World Cup?
Well, that's that's pretty much their mission statement, isn't it? From Rassie Erasmus, who steps into the role as director of rugby. It's one thing saying, it's another thing doing. I mean, to say, I think South Africa have always sort of proved they're not a bad sort of tournament team, but sort of playing your regular season rugby a little bit different. Obviously, it's going to depend on what sort of shape a lot of those players that they can utilise overseas are in. well, if they're intact and fit per se, and if they can hit the ground running again, there's probably no reason. We all know they're going to be a tough team to beat. Unfortunately for Australia, once again, big job there for Dave Rennie to get that mob up and running again, and you'll probably have an All Black team that's got a point to prove.
Yeah, I think Dave Rennie he's put a good set of coaches around him. So I think we're going to see a better Wallabies outfit next year, but I don't think so. But yeah, it's going to take some time to turn that round. You say, yeah, it's South African good squad team. The Jaguars need to improve, but you've got to say that the All Blacks from a rugby championship point of view are looking pretty good. Looking at the Six Nations, this has got to be one of the most interesting and intriguing Six Nations for a long time. Eddie Jones with England has lost all his assistant coaches. We've got a brand new head coach for Ireland, for Wales, and France, and Italy, and then with just Gregor Townsend holding on there with Scotland.
Yeah,
with that set up, how are you seeing things?
Oh, listen, I think England are still the best team by some distance in the Six Nations. If you look at the quality that they've got across the board, I think probably Wales. If we were basically looking at the rankings, what do they rank? Number 3 in the world at the minute, Paul.
Something around there, but they've been jumping up and down, haven't
they? Above Ireland. Once again they're going to have a bit of a transition to their new coach Wayne Pivak as well. So it's going to be interesting. They have got a lot of good youngsters, but I do think it might be a little bit of a struggle without. They've got a couple of key players out, Gareth Anscombe, and who's the other chappie that's out at the moment. But when they have got their best 15 or 23 on the paddock, they are a good side. But I still think England, England, they'll probably have a little bit of a rock in their back at the moment, Paul, about the World Cup, and they'll just maybe want to make a bit more of a point to World Rugby.
Yeah, and absolutely, and they've also got what's the word I'm looking for? They've got continuity because their defence coach become their head coach for Ireland. So Batman in the live chat thinks that France could do it, and that's right. So yeah, France are looking a lot better, and if they get a proper coach, they've got a real chance. So the Six Nations should be really interesting this year.
Yeah, that is an interesting one. One thing France have got, and listen, have they taken out the 2 previous under 20s, under 20 World Cups?
Yep.
Paul?
Well, I think one of them.
They got a lot of. I know, watching a bit of the French 14, they got some really good young guys running around. The likes of Emile, is it Intermac, the young guy, son of. They got some good young players. I kind of look around. I suppose an area where they might be a little bit weak is probably at lock, Paul. If you remember, think back to the World Cup, they used pretty much guys who were loose forwards as lock. But on saying that, it kind of worked for them to a point.
Yep, no, absolutely. I think that France will be in there as well. So, but Ireland, to me, I think got a point to prove, and I think that they're the Six Nations favourites. But I think it's going to be a real fascinating one.
Paul, interestingly enough, a game I tuned in and watched was Leinster and Munster. Was a good contest, but to me it kind of reminded me of very much their national sides. They play in such narrow channels, Paul. They've just got to expand their game a little bit more. They've got some good young players over there. But man alive, I've got to say, compared to some of the games that I watched in the Premiership, it was quite a grinding watch. The commentators were commenting on what a great game it was. I was going, really? It was a grind. It was a tough watch, in my opinion. In terms of their forwards, the forward play, really accuracy. There was some absolutely ridiculous phases, 30-odd phases, Paul. But
to be fair to Leinster, they were away from home to Munster to win that one, and Leinster haven't lost a game all season in all competitions. Yes, it might be boring, but it's working, and it's working in Europe as well.
Absolutely, but I was sort of thinking to myself, if these are two of the better teams, maybe Ulster would probably have a say in that as well. Probably Leinster, Ulster, and then Munster, then Connacht, probably as your top four. But I just expected something a bit expensive to give them a little bit of slack. The conditions weren't the greatest. It was very very windy at Thomond Park in Munster. So, and Leinster also were trying a lot of young guys as well.
The RFU makes the Irish provinces rest players over the festive period, which I know has caused some consternation in some podcasts, but they do it every year, to be honest. And the Ireland are probably the best at player welfare in the world, along with perhaps New Zealand. So yeah, so it's unsurprising really.
And a good victory by Leinster as well, because Munster hadn't been beaten at their home ground for a while, from what I believe.
Yep, Simon says that Munster's B teams. Both sides of players missing, rested compulsory, but even so, Leinster are looking very good, and to win away at Munster takes a lot. It's always a good result. It's going to be interesting to see how that all pans out. The other thing that's happening is Mainstream Rugby will be kicking off soon, so I'm looking forward to that new conference system. So I'm not sure, but you've got to say that Seattle Saracens were looking to go for the third one. Not Seattle Saracens, sorry. Seattle Seawolves were looking to go for their third one, up the third victory there. So that will be you're going to say it's going to be hard to see who's going to push them. I will be doing a Furious only show about that on over the next week or so look out for that. But predictions for rugby in general, I think it's going to be a bit of a quiet year in some ways, but I think we're about to see a massive amount of change in the next 3 years because of the CVC investment. They haven't finalised Six Nations one yet, but they've already put a new CEO in charge of Premiership Rugby, and I think times they are changing, Stephen.
Yeah, even I suspect on the local front, obviously a new CEO, new coaching staff for All Black Rugby. It'll be really interesting to see some of the lessons. I know you spoke about Ben Darwin before,
Yep.
and he always writes a lot of interesting stuff. For any of the viewers out there, there's a website called the Gain Line Report, and there's some really interesting stuff about the way that the game is being played at the minute, and what some teams are doing better than others per se.
Yeah, so I think I don't expect it to be big change this year. We've got the global season changes with the gym window moving to July. Super Rugby's changing in 2021, so those are already set in stone. So I think we might have a relatively quiet political year in rugby, as everyone takes a breath after the Rugby World Cup as well on a playing front. Is my kind of general rugby prediction, but I think we're going to see lots of red cards this year.
Yes, unfortunately, the referees just seem to be getting tougher on that. I know in sevens, there's pretty much zero tolerance if you basically knock a ball down, going for an intercept. It's pretty much the players are. It's what's quite hilarious. The players are pretty much running off the field before they start. Paul, I'm just going to just back the truck a little bit just to an article that's on the Game Line, and it's basically headed "Only as strong as the weakest link." As the old saying goes, a team is only as strong as its weakest link, regardless how strong the team is overall. A weak link can be exploited if found by the opposition. And pretty much it's quite interesting in this article. It touches on a team like the All Blacks who have had players for a long time, and sometimes your best players can be your weakest link as well, Paul, if they're targeted. And there's sort of little excerpts throughout this particular article that makes you think, but it also makes you think about how coaches, if coaches are basically, I think moving forward, coaches are going to have a little bit more nerve to think about specific game plans and who they're actually playing against. Just because you look $1 million playing one side one week, do you go into the next game maybe sort of tweaking some of your personnel just to basically play in the mind of the team that you're up against, because they're expecting something but you're doing something completely different. Maybe we saw a little bit of that with the All Blacks when they changed one of their loose forwards around for the England game, expecting to do something else, but pretty much got shut down in a specific area. So it's a really, really interesting article. So if anybody wants to jump on and have a look at that, it's the game line. If we can remember our old friend Ben Darwin, who played for the Wallabies, and it's some really thought-provoking stuff.
Yeah, I've chatted with Ben on Twitter quite frequently, and yeah, they are doing some really great stuff at some game. I had his business partner, I've forgotten who it is now, on a show a couple of years ago. Yeah, they're doing some wonderful stuff over there. The other thing that I guess you come between one or two places. Someone like Exeter, for example, Baxter has said, look, why would we practice drop goals and things in the 22 when we know we have our pick and go is fantastic, and we just practice that over and over again so we get it right. So you know what's going to happen once Exeter are within 10 metres. Question is, can you stop it? And it's a matter of how much do you get so good at something that people can't stop you and just play your game, and how much do you find the weakness and try and adapt to beating the opposition's weakness. And I guess we're going to see, the best coaches are going to get that balance right, and that can be the difference between when we're talking about these 1% differences. That's the kind of difference that's between championship sides and good sides.
Paul, sometimes when I spoke about the situation where Leinster put on about 30 odd phases together, whilst they weren't making a lot of ground, man, it was impressive, because their cleaners were giving the jacklers, players coming through just absolutely no time, and the halfbacks were just getting absolute armchair rides, and it was really, really impressive to watch. Where if you think down in New Zealand, basically the first instinct is pretty much to attack, try and create really quick ball, so they don't create that many phases. They just want to go a little bit wider. But obviously up in the Northern Hemisphere, England, you spoke about Exeter before, and I saw those phases they put together. They are 9 times out of 10, if they're picking and going inside your 22, they score. They do it so well. And here we go again. It's really up to the coaches to basically devise some tactics to try and stop it legally.
Yep. Well, Craig Crabstall has joined in chat and said England are going to romp through the Six Nations, in my opinion. No coaching setup to compare to England's. The problem is that England's coaching setup has disappeared. All you've got left is Eddie Jones. All his assistants have left. So whilst they've got the head coach, he needs guys to do the actual tracksuit work. So it's going to be interesting to see who he brings in to replace that, and whether England do continue with the coaching setup that they've got. So final piece then, New Year's resolutions for different teams. Obviously, Saracens to obey the rules of whatever competition they're playing in, and to actually admit when they've made mistakes would be nice. A New Year's resolution for all halfbacks to not wave their hands in the air would be nice. That'll last about 2 seconds into the first game. Any from yourself?
No, not too many. There's not too many things that are. Listen, probably a resolution for me is sometimes I just kind of wish the officials will just have a little bit more of a empathetic feel for certain situations. We do see situations sometimes where players, like we saw we spoke about maybe a couple of weeks ago about the Ben. I don't know if you saw Ben Smith get sent off against who were Poe. He was playing for Poe, and I forget who they were playing against. Might have been Stade Francais or one of those teams, and he was sent off for elbow connection to the head. But boy, if you kind of look at that in real time, he's getting the ball, and all he can really do is put his elbow up at the same time.
As soon as you put your forearm away from your body and you make contact with someone's head, you're in trouble. Simple as that.
You know the crazy thing about it, had he not got his arm up, he probably would have been the victim of a high tackle, falling into. It's just, it's something that does my head in. It really does.
But you either have consistency or empathy. I'm afraid you can't have both. Hugh says his number 1 New Year's resolution for the Wallabies is consistency on field. Yeah, no more rocks and diamonds. And also, he says for fans to give the Wallabies coaching staff some time.
and to be honest, that's a fair call.
Yep.
My other one, from a personal point of view, New Year's resolution. God, come on, Blues, you've got to come right sometimes. and I say that from an area that's got a big base, and it's not just Auckland as well. It's Harbour and Northland as well. And for crying out loud, it's about time you guys front it up. It's as simple as that.
Oh dear. Well, there you go. The Blues don't overplay Akira Iwani, basically, and don't give Rico Iwani any weekends off. Those are the two things you need to do.
Shut down Wi-Fi at home. No Wi-Fi.
No Wi-Fi. Oh dear. Well, Happy New Year, Stephen. Thank you very much for coming on. Have a good evening, whatever you're up to.
Listen, it's been fun, and I've just been sort of looking at the Twitter handle and a lot of great thoughts out there. Wishing everybody who's come on the show, obviously, a happy New Year, and all to those subscribers out there. We want to keep this man going. So, Paul, you can tell everybody where they can subscribe to. But that's a very happy New Year to yourself, and of course, all the guests that have been on the show as well. Without them, I'll tell you what, you wouldn't be able to sort of piece all this content together, and it's definitely a lot of fun. Just make sure if you're out on the roads, just drive safely and don't overdo it with the alcohol.
Don't drink and drive. If you want to overdo it with the alcohol, that's fine, but don't drink and drive.
Just send your alcohol to Paul.
So, DrivingMaul.com, head over there, and you'll find there are Patreon-only articles. Click on any of those, and you can sign up there. Some Patreon-only articles coming your way, as saying, and look at the structure and what's happening with Major League Rugby. I'm going to preview that over the next 2 weeks. Also, I'm looking at putting together a 3-part series looking at how rugby is likely to change over the next few years. So look at what's going to happen initially, what's happening now at the moment, because stuff's already in the works. Then look at what CVC did with Formula One. And then the third show is to look at what can we learn from what CVC did with Formula One, and so what it's likely to do with the Pro 14, Gallagher Premiership and Six Nations, i.e. European rugby. And because that will then impact the rest of the world. The rest of the world has to is being driven by, let's be honest, the spending power of Europe, and that only promises to get bigger. So those 3 shows will be coming up over the next 3 or 4 weeks. So if you want to have access to those, become a supporter of Driving Maul for as much as you like per month. As little as $1, as much as $50, up to you. I've got people at all levels in between. So thank you very much. Happy New Year. Thank you very much, Stephen, and everyone who has been on the shows. People like Ashwin, Steve, Herman, Shane, Hugh, who else? Will Mike Pullman, the attacking scrum who've been on a show with me, and loads of other people. Thank you everyone who has helped out on the channel in the last year. Hopefully you're all going to help out next year as well.
Absolutely, we'll be there. And hey, if you want to touch base with me during the off season, my Twitter handle is @Stephen73_H. So yeah, just chuck me a line. I know I normally can chuck some controversial stuff out there, and I'm just trying to think of something controversial at the moment. Can't think of anything.
Okay, all right. Good night, everybody. I'll be back tomorrow night, probably for a solo show for the All Blacks edition. So check that out too.